What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Believe in Kentucky on the Believe Network. Follow us on all the Believe Kentucky platforms. Vinny Hardy here, Cole Park there in Lexington. Cole, the portal is popping, and we definitely got to talk about all that. But I got to pivot to baseball real quick because uh, you were in Kentucky Proud Park last night. I don't know how I felt there. That's why I want to get with you because watching it, even though no hitter was intact for two-thirds of the game, all the free passes and stuff, it still felt like, even though they won 4-2, which is always good, especially with the little rough bumps in conference, and you beat Louisville, it still felt like they were living a little dangerously. Now, did it feel that way in the box?
Yeah, they made it dicey a few times, and I think part of that has to do more with how Louisville was playing and less how they were playing. I mean, Louisville, like you said, no hitter for 6 innings, I believe it was, but they scored in the first. And the way they did that is they would get some strategic walks. And I don't know that I've ever seen a hit rate on stolen bases like Louisville put up last night. I mean, that was staggering how quickly they were moving the bases despite not getting any hits. They ended up finishing the game, leaving like double digit runners stranded, I want to say, on 2 hits. So a few costly walks. They finally came alive a little bit there in the top of the ninth before Jack Bennett could settle back down. A huge double play there by Caden Cloud, the true freshman at third
Mhm.
base. Yeah, it was dicey at times. I think that you have to give a lot of credit to like 8 pitchers through a combined 2 hitter. I mean, that was a staggering performance by the bullpen. Um, Bit of a different lineup for the Cats. We saw Will Marcy come in as a pinch hitter before going back out in right field. He replaced Carson Hansen, who'd been kind of playing some DH a little bit. We saw Scott Campbell be a starter. Caden Cloud got the start at third. We saw, obviously, a lot of these changes had to do with Hudson Brown being out. That's a pretty big loss for the Cats. Not an injury, but an illness, as I've come to understand it. I won't go too much into specifics on that, but he is not feeling well. He is very sick, but he's still doing his best to get back. However, Mingione told us that it might be a little while on that. So we'll see how long he ends up being out for. Losing him kind of caused some of that lineup shifts going on, but they got it done. The hitting, maybe not as good as you would have wanted it to be, but a big 3 run. I want to say 6th inning. They hit 3 runs, and that's really where the game blew open. They did enough what they needed to do, and at the end of the day, they leave. We saw the return of Tyler Cerny. He got an RBI in that one. All in all, it got dicey a few times for sure, but they took care of business with less than ideal circumstances. And Louisville was just running the bases fantastic. Despite not getting hits all night long, they were stealing the bases with efficiency. They were getting some good walks. Like they made it tough on them for sure. But I think anytime you can come out in a midweek after a series like they just had, get a win, no matter what it looks like, and prepare to go to Auburn.
Absolutely. Do you think the walks and hit by pitches can be cleaned up? Because this pitching staff and bullpen was thought to be a strength. Or do you think they're becoming kind of they are what they are?
Um, I think it can always get cleaned up at times. I think that there's always a sense of players kind of playing to the moment, especially as it starts getting closer to the postseason. With that said, do I expect this to develop into like a top pitching staff? Probably not. I mean, you've looked at what
Mhm.
they've done to this point. They probably are a little bit of what they are, but even against Louisville, there was more walks than you'd have wanted, I'm sure. But it was really just Louisville stealing bases that really cost you. Obviously, Owen Jenkins, the catcher, he's been out a little bit after getting banged up a little bit at LSU, taking some contact. So you haven't had him. You've had Tagger playing back there, and there's been at times some issues picking people off, stealing bases. They've got a couple, but a lot more efficiency by the Cardinals stealing bases than we saw maybe from Missouri. So Louisville made it seem like they were doing better than they were. I would say like that. That maybe sounds a little bit disrespectful to the Cardinals baseball team, but I think that their base running made it seem like they were playing better than they actually were. I think the bullpen, for all intents and purposes, played very, very well against the Cardinals. Maybe there were some issues against Missouri that led to them losing that series, but I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not as in tune with baseball coaching as I am with basketball coaching or even football coaching for that matter. So it's hard to really say what you can do, what the pitching coaches can do. I mean, that's what they get paid for. But I think on some levels, you just kind of have to say, well, they are what they are. But at the same time, I'm not just going to say that all of these problems are going to exist for the rest of the year. I think there can be some cleaning up. I don't think they're ever going to be necessarily what we thought they would be going into the season.
Yeah. Yep. So now you head to Auburn and back in conference play, and we'll see what happens down there. At least see if they can take 2 out of 3 down there. That would be nice. Be nice. Get back on the winning side. That get them to 8-7 at the halfway point of conference play. So it could be worse. It could be worse.
It'd be a lot worse.
For sure. So the thing that's keeping everybody up, especially those that are tracking it, is you just transition right into the transfer portal. We've seen some guys leave. We've seen some guys returning. Brandon Garrison, Jalen Lowe, Modi Abate, Andre Yelovich, with the potential for a return for Yelovich. Malachi Moreno, if we're exploring, but he's back unless he gets like confirmation he's gonna be a lottery pick or something like that. And the returners, Cam Williams, and let's see where
That's it right now.
That's it. All right.
Still waiting on an official word from Collin Chandler, Trent Noah, and then some people are saying definitively. I haven't put definitively on my tracker. Now that the portal's open, I would like to see maybe something from Reese or Braden just confirming it. But right now, that's kind of where they're at. With Malachi, I think your biggest worry if you're a Kentucky fan with Malachi is not that he's going to get significant draft guarantees, because I just don't see that happening right now. Your biggest worry regarding Malachi is if some team doesn't see him and like his tools and say, hey, we'd rather develop you in-house as opposed to let you develop in college. We've seen that happen before. I don't know that that's necessarily in play here, but that would be your biggest worry as far as I'm concerned. I think with Malachi is not necessarily a team drafting him for what he is now, but maybe a team seeing him and wanting to develop him in-house as opposed to let him go back to college. Right now, I'm moving forward with the maybe optimistic assumption that he'll probably be back at Kentucky next year. We saw in his announcement that if he does come back to college, it will only be at Kentucky, nowhere else. So you have that, sigh of relief. And I think that's probably what will end up happening. Just in terms of what you're looking at, it would be that. It would be a team that wants to develop him personally within their system, in their staff, in their training rooms, as opposed to letting him develop at the college level.
So historically, especially when I was growing up, that organization was always, the Spurs, a good, solid organization that always in the playoffs, always picking in the late first round. They could just step out and snag a guy like that for exactly what you're saying. Spurs
Kind of
really
like what the
don't.
Celtics are doing with Amari Williams. That's what they brought him in to do, is to develop him into a piece they wanted him to be, and now they got him on a big contract.
Spurs don't need a big, but exactly. Your Celtics, same kind of situation. So that's what BBN would have to hold their breath for. Eliminated the other college situation. Now it's just, development, like you said, at the pro level by a pro team. So we'll see how that goes as well. What the roster, Mason Williams is in there. We talked about him last week. Still in for some other guards. We're hearing all the names: Zoom Diallo and Dink Pade and Donnie Freeman from Syracuse, and all these names are just flying everywhere.
I think the big one people are looking at right now is BYU's Rob Wright. That's one that's getting a lot of buzz right now on social media. He entered the portal officially yesterday. Kentucky is making a push. Kentucky also did a call with LSU's Dayton Thomas. There's a couple other guards in there too. A lot of movement on a lot of players. Again, I think that it's always fun. Everyone likes to hear, oh, they're talking to this person, oh, they're talking to this person, they're reaching out to this one, they're doing a Zoom call with this one. I would just tell people to be aware that having a Zoom call with somebody or talking to somebody does not necessarily mean Kentucky's making a significant push for them. Sometimes those calls are feeling things out, asking, hey, what are you looking for? Um, and obviously, in the modern era of college sports, the offer is always going to be a factor. When you look at some of these guys, Rob Wright's a guy, for example. I'm not saying he's one of those guys they're not actually reaching out to. I think that they are making a push for Rob Wright, but you also have to look at Rob Wright and know that he's probably going to come with a pretty substantial price tag attached to him. And how does that factor into the ongoing recruitment of Tyron Stokes, which is still going on? I know there's some BBN fans who are more on the doom and gloom side, say, well, he's a Jayhawk. That's not decided yet. He is still actively choosing between Kansas and Kentucky, being a little troll on social media. That's what he does. But also making a huge decision for his future at the same time. So that's still ongoing. You see both Kansas and Kentucky having pretty big exoduses right now on their roster. You have to wonder how much of that is working on clearing up space to try to maybe entice Stokes with a better offer. And then how does that affect who you go after in the portal as well? If you get Stokes, does that maybe take some targets off your board? Say, all right, well, we got Stokes. We don't need this person anymore, but we had to look at them in case we didn't get him. You always have to have all these contingency plans. There's a lot of players who are maybe third, fourth, fifth options that they're still being reported as being talked to because they're talking to them. And that's our job right now, is to put out what we're hearing, who's being talked to, put any names out there so there's no surprises. But I would just caution BBN against getting super in the weeds about maybe hearing a specific name, because being talked to, having a phone call, having a Zoom call does not mean that Kentucky's offering them a bag to come play here immediately. It means that they're feeling each other out. It means that they're at least hearing an offer, and it's entirely possible that both sides say, hey, those don't work for me, and they go their separate ways. I mean, a lot of people rolled their eyes when he said it, but I think Pope even said at the start of this last season, he said, you'd be surprised at how many guys we mutually walk away from. And that's true. I can tell you that is true. There's a lot of players that they look at, and everyone, I know how fan bases are. All right, I get it. But there's a lot of times people will say, oh, this was a whiff on this coach, or this was a Mark Pope whiff, or a Pat Kelsey whiff, or a whiff on this. Half the time, most of these whiffs are the coach saying, we're not really going to prioritize this player anymore. Whether that's because things weren't going the way you wanted it to, whether it's because you want to go after someone else, whatever the reason, there's a lot of times these discussions break down, and it's not just a college throwing out offers saying, come to play for Kentucky, and the player saying no. That's not how this goes all the time. Sometimes maybe, but a lot of the time that's not how it goes. A lot of times it has to do with discussions, and maybe someone wants to play at Kentucky, but they don't like the money they're being offered. Maybe they want to come play for Kentucky, but they don't like the role they're being offered. Maybe they like the role idea, and then Kentucky's talking to someone else and brings someone else, and they're like, well, those are my minutes that I'm losing, so I'm going to find somewhere that's not getting that player. There's a lot that goes into this, and there's a lot of names that are going to be out there, and there's going to be a lot of those names you're seeing right now, just like last year. A lot of these names we're seeing right now are not going to go to Kentucky. Maybe some of them will. It's entirely possible. I don't know yet. But there was so much made last year of all of Kentucky's early targets going elsewhere. A guy like Mo Diabate that Kentucky got wasn't even in the portal period until halfway through the cycle. A player that Kentucky eventually landed was not even in the portal until Mark Pope had already whiffed, as you want to say, on multiple other players. So you don't really know what's going to happen until it happens. Until we see some commitments, all of this is just buzz and smoke, and they are making pushes for certain players harder than others. They are making more calls and efforts towards other players than maybe others. They're still involved with NBA G League star Dink Pate. That's still a guy that's on their radar, even after Jason Hart left for SMU. There's a lot that goes into this, and I would just tell people to be cautious of getting super in the weeds about every single name you hear 2 days into the portal. We don't even know who all is going to enter the portal. We don't even know who all they're going to retain. We still, even if I personally am optimistic about the way things are trending, we don't even know if Collin Chandler's coming back right now. We don't even know if Trent Noah's coming back. And maybe you can say, oh, well, who cares? It does matter for how you build your roster, how you allocate your funds, how you build your team. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. And once we see the first commit, it's entirely possible that takes a whole bunch of players off your board, because you're like, all right, well, we addressed that need, so we can mark that off, mark that off, mark that off. We just don't really know exactly how it's going to work and who's going to gel well. There's a lot that goes into this, and it might be a little bit of time before we start seeing some confirmation stuff. I know the portal window is shorter this year than it was last year, with it opening after the national title game as opposed to going into the Sweet 16. But there's still a lot that goes into this, and you just got to keep on it, got to keep your eyes on it, but also don't expect everything to be exactly as it is right now. It probably won't even be like it is right now by tonight. There will be another player that enters the portal, and that'll become a big target. There will be a player that's talking to other schools, and that'll be a target. I mean, there's a guy that's on our 247 sports watch list right now, like who's Kentucky targeting. He's expected to cut his list down to 5 schools like really soon. I don't expect Kentucky to be on that list of 5 personally. I don't. But he's still on our board because they were interested in him, and we just kind of have to keep rolling with that, you know?
Caution online. You told people to be cautious. What's that? Says everybody online. Caution. What is that, Cole Park?
Who knows,
Everybody's
man?
reckless and knee jerk, reactionary. That's the exact opposite of caution, is what we're seeing online. Rob Wright, though, for the record, he's right-handed. I'm just saying. I'm just
He is right-handed.
So,
It's in his name.
Yeah, exactly. So that will possibly factor in to the roster building, to the structuring of the offense, well, as we learned a couple weeks ago on the coach's show. So just everybody that's being wild and reckless, be cautious. And, we don't know what he's doing, but we know there was an emphasis last year on left-handed point guards. So don't get too just dialed in on Rob Wright, maybe for that reason and that reason only. Who knows? It changes every single minute, and you're tracking all those minute-by-minute changes as we speak. And there's also that tightrope of, building a roster, adding depth, which is very necessary. We've seen how they've been bitten because of a lack of depth. Then in your building depth, you set off a chain reaction of guys leaving because there's hey, a little more dudes in my spot than I thought. So I'm gonna go elsewhere. So how far do you push that envelope and build that depth, and then you get somebody, and then now you're still needing depth. It's just an interchange that just took place. So
it's a balancing act. I mean, we saw it last year with a Caden Lewis's decommitment. That left them weak at the point guard position. Travis Perry entered the portal late in the cycle as well. And then just to my point earlier about being cautious too and not really knowing, if you want intel on Rob Wright right now, I mean, Kentucky's far from the only school pursuing him. And one of the schools that's not out of the equation, get this, BYU. There is still in contention for their own player. I mean, we saw last year when Kentucky was making a big push for Magoon Guath out of San Diego State. How did that go? Everyone was like, oh, he's going to Kentucky. And then he removes his name from the portal altogether and stays at San Diego State. Obviously, he's back in the portal this year, but there's just so many moving pieces to all of this. There's so much going on. And that's why I liked when you saw Cam Williams announce he was coming back, one of the biggest things you saw people saying was, hey, the best players to recruit are the ones you got. So get those guys back first, know what you have, and then go assess what you still need. And maybe Denzel Aberdeen will play a 5th year of college basketball. We don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what his claim would be, but maybe. Who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Mm-hmm. So and there's probably 2 schools of thought or 2 feelings among fans. The excitement with the potential of, somebody new. Oh, we know what all these guys can do. Oh, greener pastures with all these 1,800 dudes that are in the portal, and we can see how they would fit and what they could do. And then there's those that I'd like to see more continuity. Well, I'd hate seeing so much change and everything being in flux all the time. They could develop. Cam Williams year 2 could maybe take that leap. Then there's some that are like, well, we already know what we got with these guys. I want to see what the new is. So it's all, it's just wow.
You know, something that frustrates me at times too, and I'll push back on that a little bit. I don't necessarily know that there's two schools of thought because I think there's a lot of people out there that hold both of those opinions simultaneously. The same people that like not all of them, but some of these same people that are saying, "Oh, get this player, get this player, get this player," are the same ones saying the sport isn't what it used to be and coaches don't develop players anymore. And then are the same people saying, "Well, I want this player back." And then are the same people saying, "Well, I want this player to the portal," and then say the team doesn't gel well together. You can't have all of it at the same time.
Mhm.
Um, I think that development is an important factor here. And there are people saying, I saw it a lot in my mentions, especially when you're talking about Malachi and Collin. They're like, well, why would we want them back? And I'm like,
Yeah.
why would you not? You
Mhm.
saw the leap Collin Chandler made from year 1 to year 2. Imagine what he can look like in year 3. You know, you saw Malachi, a guy that came into college with very little expectations about what he was going to do. He was on one of the lowest deals in the team last year. He was expected to be the third guy once JQ came back, and he became the starter. And obviously, some of that had to do with JQ's injury, but he ended up surpassing Brandon Garrison and starting for the remainder of the season. And people were so frustrated with him towards the end of the year. And I would just push back on that a little bit and say, yeah, but you're frustrated that he's not living up to some of the same standards that he set for himself because he didn't come into college with those expectations. He didn't come into college with those anticipations. He
Mhm.
set those for himself. And then you're frustrated that he's not living up to. So I don't understand some people that weren't really super key on the retention of those two, especially Cam Williams is a guy who showed flashes of what he could do. He was really coming into his own before, breaking his foot in January and coming back from injury by March. That's insane. And personally, I don't care that he didn't drop a ton of points in the tournament. His bone was not healed in his foot, Vinny. Like,
Yeah.
these are players that have the pieces to be genuinely great if you can use them in the right system, pair them, and develop them. And people are saying, well, go get this guy to the portal. And this guy in the portal, we live in this social media generation. I hate to sound like that, but we live in this social media generation where everyone looks at a highlight reel and says, oh, he looks great. They're not posting low light reels of these players. They're not
Mhm.
posting the other 42 minutes they're playing. College basketball is 40 minutes. I don't know what I'm saying. Um, the other 32 minutes they're playing, they're only posting the best clips because a lot of this has to do with agents. A lot of this has to do with the players trying to find somewhere. A lot of it has to do with negotiations. Until you watch as much as you can of some of these players, I would just push back on everyone being like, get a team of this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Um, I remember I saw a tweet that made me laugh. And I'm sorry to go on this little diatribe. I saw a tweet that made me laugh. It said seeing a bunch of fan bases clamoring for a player that they must get, and you watched your team play him, and he's just not that good. Like, it's a funny feeling, but it's also
Mhm.
a terrible feeling sometimes when maybe you see your own fan base do that with a player that you've watched, and you're like, I don't, I don't know that he fits in that system like you think he will.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. So I always was in the. I'm not a big recruiting guy. I'll see what they have when everybody, when the dust settles. You know, if we don't have a team by Big Blue Madness, then I'll worry. That's kind of where I've always been. They've always had teams by Big Blue Madness. Maybe it's not exactly what they want or how they thought it would be, but they
Let me
always
suit
field
up,
a team.
Vinny. Let me suit up. I'll be out there
Hey, you got some point guard depth. You got some, run that offense, Cole.
with my first year. I will be redshirting.
There you go. So yeah, it's something else. And like I said, it'll change, could change here in a minute when Kentucky is off his list. If he trims Kentucky off the list, there's ricochets and chain reactions and domino effects from all of this, every single move. So we'll see how it goes and see how different it is when we do our next episode. Um, Football, man. Um, got a spring game coming up in a week and a half. Um, you talked about it. You wrote about it. Friend of the show, Willie Rodriguez, is getting a lot of buzz and maybe even opening eyes and better than they thought. And looks like he's going to eat in this offense. What else is popping from spring practice that's catching your eye, or should we be looking at?
I also want to point out on the Willie Rodriguez story. I want to pull this quote just to say it out loud that we got from Will Stein. He said, "If we are not feeding him the rock daily, shame on us." That should
Mm,
tell you all you need to know about Willie Rodriguez and what he can do. Um, I spoke with running backs coach earlier this week. That was Colby Smith. Hearing a lot of things about the running backs. Obviously, you have Jason Patterson coming back. He's showing some flashes. We've seen Martell's Carter move over to play running back. That is something, as we've learned, that he is expected to continue to do into the fall. It's not just because of depth reasons right now. They are expected to keep him at running back, maybe as well as safety throughout the year. That's going to be interesting to see. It's hard to necessarily know too much about the running backs right now. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement around. I think it's C.J. Baxter and Javante. That's embarrassing. Javante
Holmes,
Barnes. Javante
Barnes,
Barnes.
yeah.
C.J. Baxter and Javante Barnes. But as is pretty common with running backs, especially ones coming off maybe some injuries, they're kind of holding them out a little bit of some of the live stuff going on right now, and that's extra frustrating because it's hard to necessarily know what you have with a running back sometimes until you can see them break tackles and go through contact. But also, Stein was pretty candid with it. He says, right now, my goal is get those guys to fall, get those guys to week one. So there's a lot of optimistic about CJ Baxter, especially optimism, I should say, not optimistic about CJ Baxter, especially. We heard from Colby Smith. There's also a lot about Javante Barnes. So I expect those guys to be pretty good. It's not uncommon. Again, I wouldn't get people stressing out about that they're not playing as much right now. Seth McGowan didn't play a lot last year, and he was great going into the
That's true.
season. So
That's
it
true.
doesn't really matter at times with a running back. Your main goal is to get them healthy, get them to the season. Um, and then we'll talk to Alan Brown tomorrow, and then Will Stein again this Saturday. I believe they might be having a second scrimmage this weekend, so we'll get some more info on that. I've got plenty of stories coming for the Cat's Paws that have been delayed a little bit by nature of getting in this endless loop of refreshing the transfer portal
Yeah.
tracker to try to bring everybody the most accurate, quick news as we can with new targets, new transfers, new returnees. So we're updating that constantly with Intel all the time. It's taking up a lot of my time right now. Um, I woke up this morning, girlfriend started getting ready for work, and I was probably on autopilot for the first 30 minutes of the morning because I was just so tired. I think with going to football yesterday, updating the portal tracker all throughout the day, and then working on some stuff, and then going to baseball. I think I worked probably 12 hours straight, and that's not sitting playing on my phone for 12 hours straight. That was working for 12 hours straight.
Mhm.
Back at it today. So we'll be updating the portal tracker with a few more names after the show. And then I'm going to try to get to some of these football stories that I really want to do. They keep adding up the more interviews we do, and we got more tomorrow. So I've got right now, I'm looking at my list. I'm thinking it's going to be 11 stories that I want to write at some point over the next week or so for
Mm.
football. And then you also have baseball stuff getting added onto that. I do have the benefit of them being at Auburn this weekend, so I'll be watching those, but I will not be going to Auburn for that. Won't have
Mhm.
to be. I enjoy being at KPP, but won't have to be at KPP this weekend covering that. So I'll be able to get some more of these stories up. And then we'll just continue following the basketball transfer portal, how that's going. Obviously, Kentucky fans maybe got a sigh of relief on the women's basketball front.
Yes.
Virginia has been filled. Kenny Brooks is staying put. My information that I've received is that that was not something he ever seriously entertained doing. Um, KSR obviously reported that there was interest from Virginia. I fully believe that. I think Virginia would have been crazy not to be interested in Kenny
Yeah.
Brooks, but my understanding is that there was not really any interest from Brooks's side. And you could push back a little bit and say, hey, well, why didn't he leverage that into a paycheck? He just didn't feel the need to. He likes where they're at. He likes what they're doing. You got a good situation right now. 3 McDonald's All-Americans coming in. You got Clara Strack committed to come back for next year, and you're in the SEC. I think Kenny Brooks is happy. I don't see him going anywhere, and I think that program has a very bright future ahead of it. So excited to see where that goes. Constantly just monitoring the situation. That's all we do all the time over here at the Cat's Paws is monitor the situation, keep up with what's going on, and report news as it comes. So hopefully going to get to some of these football stories over the next week. Excited to see, be able to tell some of these stories from things we've gotten, put some of that information out there, and then we'll see who Kentucky gets for the basketball team, huh?
Absolutely. And as far as Kenny Brooks, I was just up there in Dukes, Wahoo, Virginia, JMU country this weekend. I was at Harrisonburg just to hop on a jump from Charlottesville, and uh, cool to not have to worry about him returning to where he's from. He just played his alma mater in the tournament. He was at Virginia Tech. At some point, if you want to get to a place and then build to contend. And I think he feels like he's able to do that. Had a really good first year with Georgia Amore. Ball bounces differently. Who knows what kind of run they're able to make in year one? He bettered that in year two, getting to the first Sweet 16 in a decade. And now, you got Man Greenway and these three All-Americans and Clara Stratt coming back. I'm not a coach, but I'm sure all these jobs and things are tempting, and you got to look and you got to listen, you got to see where you are. But are you always wanting to start over? So, I mean, he clearly felt the need to leave Virginia Tech for Kentucky. Took them to a Final Four, but he was like, hey, okay, Kentucky's sleeping giant, like he says. I can go to Lexington, I'll be in SEC, I can do this. But you can't just be starting from scratch all the time. Now he's not Geno old. He's mid-50s, but he's not Ty Golden either. So at some point, you got to kind of build. And if I want to contend for championships, you got to pick a spot and stack year on year on year. And he's got them in position in year three with these recruits and to kind of make that move. And Virginia is home, no doubt. He was probably honored to receive that, but to go and have to start over with where you are now, you want to take 2 years, 3 years to do that. You just did that here. That's the money is great and all that, but I'm not a coach. But at some point, you gotta put roots in, and hey, I'm gonna do this here. And
yeah, to that point, when he arrived here, I think that there was a sentiment of Virginia's home, but he accomplished all he was going to be able to accomplish there. It's a tough place. He said when he came here, I wanted to be in the SEC. I want to be where the best are. And that I know we were talking about that in a year where the Big Ten won the title. All the Big Ten people are going crazy because the Big Ten finally broke its basketball drought, won a women's title, won a football title. So they're all going a bit crazy right now. Let them have their fun. At the end of the day, when you look at it, apart from UConn, the SEC is the best basketball conference in women's basketball. It just is. You have South Carolina. Texas is very, very good. They were just in the title game. You've got all kinds of great teams out there. Texas was not the title game. Texas lost to UCLA in the Final Four. I know ball. You got South Carolina, which was in the title game. Texas in the Final Four.
Texas.
LSU with Kim Mulkey. You got some great. I mean, even arguably one of the most accomplished women's basketball programs of all time, even if they're down right now, is Tennessee. So you've got some great women's basketball programs in the SEC. He wanted to be here. And if things hadn't gone very well, then maybe I would have considered him having interest in that job. But it's not. He said he wanted to compete in the SEC. He said at Big Blue Madness this year, we want to win national titles here. They're on pace to do that right now. Like it's difficult in women's basketball. The ceiling in women's basketball is way higher than the floor. There might be a bigger talent gap in women's basketball than maybe any other college sport out there right now. But year one, you're hosting a regional in the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, and you get picked off in just an unfortunate loss, a truly unfortunate way for that to go. Year two, you're in the Sweet 16. You upset West Virginia in Morgantown. You move on. You're in the Sweet 16. Now you've got Clara Stratt, an All-American, committed to come back for you before the portal even opened. And then you've got 3 McDonald's All-Americans coming in. Like, there's no reason to think that, quite frankly, Kentucky can't. There's no reason to believe that Kenny Brooks was just blowing smoke when he said Kentucky is a sleeping giant. Clearly it's working. I think he feels like he has the resources he needs to compete. I think he feels like he has the facilities he needs to compete. And so far it's working. So under those circumstances, there was just no reason for me to really think that there was ever a viable option for him. And from what I've heard, that is the case. I do believe there was some interest there from Virginia. Again, would have been crazy not to be interested, but I don't think that was ever a realistic threat, in my opinion.
Rick Pitino coached at Kentucky and Louisville. Johnny Damon played for the Yankees and the Red Sox. I mean, I don't think he. I mean, he's already at Virginia Tech. Does he want to be at Virginia too? I don't. Not everybody can be on both sides of the rivalry, and maybe he.
Well, I also think there's the added factor too of, without getting too much into the specifics of their situation, Virginia right now, the last coaching administration did not end under the best terms, as far as I understand. I mean, they fired their coach after going to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
There was some internal stuff going on. Like, it's not in the greatest of places right now. It's not necessarily a, ooh, pick me kind of job right now. It's a very good school, and it can be very good. I'm not at all suggesting that. I'm just saying right now, maybe it's not where you would consider leaving a place you're already successful at right now.
Yeah. And that's all factors that have to be considered. You know, a lot of coaches move and do this and do that, but sometimes when you getting stuff set up and getting all the pieces in place, hey, I'm getting it going the way I want, and I need to stay here and see where I can take what I've already started building instead of starting from scratch. And you know, even though it is home and means a lot, and he's from up there, so yeah. Yep. Well, good stuff. We will definitely keep our eyes out on all 11 stories that you got in the chamber for us all. Kat made her long-awaited return, so good to see her. We'll be back with some guests down the road and see what the portal does, see what the offseason does, see what Kentucky baseball does, all that good stuff, man. A lot of ball left to be played, but I'm not trying to throw shade. I just want to see where you are and how you feeling about those. You know, a lot of ball left though. A lot of ball left. 150
They
games
won today.
left.
They won today. All right. They won today, and we'll take it. Did it come with some problems? Perhaps. But we'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of ball left. The kids are starving right now, Vinny.
Oh man, that's brutal, dude. That is brutal.
But they've won 2 in a row now, so don't call it a comeback.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I'll take a return to the 500 Red Sox. I'll take it. Just get me out of the basement.
500 at home, so yeah, just gotta tighten it up on the road, and there you go, man. There you go.
Yeah, I was talking to someone in the box yesterday. It was JB from he's with Batcats Daily right now, or Batcats Central. My apologies. He was saying the Bruins, the Celtics, and the Red Sox were all playing. And I said, if you'd have told me that 2 out of my 3 teams were winning and one of them was losing, I would have immediately told you the Red Sox. And it's sickening that the Red Sox were not the one that was losing last night. Killing me.
Yeah, we won't have. If it goes bad, we won't have Aaron on. We won't have him on when he can just talk trash to you. We have to try to get you.
It's been a rough April for my Bruins, by the way. L's. Straight L's for the Bruins. It's been a rough April, but we'll take it. It's been a great April for the Celtics, undefeated.
Yeah,
and mixed bag for the Sox.
Overachieving.
Oh no, we have not won 2 straight. We actually ended up. Oh no, we did. It just hadn't refreshed. I thought we ended up blowing the one last. I was like, no, we didn't. It's because they haven't added the score from today on here yet. But we good. We won 2 in a row.
There you go.
Came back to win the series after dropping game 1.
Mm-hmm.
We're back. Yep. We're up. I got the decanter up here, the big bourbon decanter. It's a Red Sox bat. We back up.
That's it.
Put the word out there that we back up.
I always
Cardinals.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You pounce on them and win that series.
We play the Yankees starting the 21st to the 23rd. That's going to be unfortunate. Unfortunate.
Oh man. Well, we're fortunate that you always hop on here and drop knowledge, and we appreciate it. And Y'all subscribe to the YouTube page and listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Get that link tree, click on it. All the platforms are there. Like, subscribe, rate, review. Follow Cole, read those stories. 11 are coming. He just told y'all 11 are coming. So keep your eyes out on the Cat's Paws 24/7 Sports portal tracker and all that good stuff. So for Cole Park, it's Vinny Hardy. That episode of Believe in Kentucky on the Believe Network. And we'll see everybody next time. Go Cats.